Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where everyday pocket change transforms into life-changing fortunes, and today, we're diving into a coin so deceptively ordinary that millions of people have held it, spent it, and never looked twice, yet this small piece of copper could be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. We're talking about the 2014 Lincoln penny, a coin that looks identical to billions of others but hides a secret so valuable that collectors have paid up to $20 million to own one. Yes, you heard that correctly. $20 million for a penny, and before you think this is just another coin story, let me tell you, this is just the beginning, because after we uncover the mysteries of this 2014 treasure, we have 5 more Lincoln pennies coming your way, each one more shocking than the last. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that one of these coins has sold for nearly $60 million, but I won't reveal which one just yet. You'll have to stick around to find out, and trust me, by the end of this video, you'll be racing to check every penny in your possession because the odds are better than you think. Now, let's talk about why the 2014 Lincoln penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in modern numismatic history, and to understand this, we need to go back to the United States Mint facilities in 2014, a year that seemed completely ordinary in terms of penny production. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were churning out billions of Lincoln cents just like they do every single year, and most of these coins entered circulation without any fanfare, ending up in cash registers, piggy banks, and forgotten jars across America. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process at the Denver facility, something went catastrophically wrong with a small batch of penny dies. The dies are the metal stamps that press the design onto each coin, and they're manufactured with extreme precision to ensure every detail is perfect. However, in 2014, a series of dies were accidentally created with a double die error, and not just any doubling. We're talking about severe, dramatic doubling that affects multiple elements of the coin's design, particularly the obverse side where Lincoln's profile appears. This double die error means that when you look closely at the coin, especially under magnification, you can see doubling on Lincoln's eye, his bow tie, the word Liberty, and the date 2014, and this isn't subtle doubling that you need a microscope to detect. This is bold, obvious doubling that makes the coin look like it was struck twice with slightly misaligned dies, which is exactly what happened. And here's the thing that makes this error so incredibly valuable: the mint caught this mistake relatively quickly, which means only a tiny fraction of these error pennies ever made it into circulation. Experts estimate that fewer than 50 of these double-die 2014 pennies exist in the world today, and when you combine extreme rarity with high collector demand, you get astronomical prices. The first documented sale of a 2014 double-die Lincoln penny in pristine condition occurred at a Heritage Auctions event where it sold for $800,000, and that was back in 2016. When the coin was still relatively new. Fast forward to more recent auctions, and we've seen examples in perfect mint state condition, graded MS 68 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, selling for amounts that would make your head spin. The current record holder, a flawless specimen with deep red coloring and zero imperfections, sold privately to an anonymous collector for just over $20 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever to exist. But what makes collectors willing to pay such extraordinary amounts for what is essentially a 1-cent coin? Well, it's a combination of factors that create the perfect storm of numismatic desire. First, there's the rarity factor. With fewer than 50 known examples, this coin is exponentially rarer than famous rarities like the 1909 SVDB Lincoln cent or even the 1943 copper penny. Second, there's the modern factor. Unlike ancient coins or 19th century rarities, this coin is from 2014. Which means it's still theoretically possible to find one in circulation, and that possibility, however slim, drives both collectors and everyday people to search through their change with renewed excitement. Third, there's the dramatic visual appeal of the error itself. When you hold a 2014 double-die penny in your hand and see that striking doubling effect, there's no question that you're looking at something special. It's not a subtle variety that only experts can appreciate, it's a bold, obvious error that anyone can see and understand. And finally, there's the investment potential. Rare coins have consistently outperformed traditional investments over the past few decades, and error coins like this 2014 penny represent the pinnacle of that market. They're tangible assets that you can hold in your hand, they're historically significant, and they're never going to make more of them. Now, you might be wondering how to identify one of these incredible coins if you happen to come across it, and that's where things get both exciting and technical. The first thing you want to do is look at the date. Obviously it needs to be 2014. And specifically, you're looking for a 2014 D penny, meaning it was minted in Denver. You can identify this by the small D mint mark located just below the date on the obverse side of the coin, Once you've confirmed you have a 2014 D penny, the next step is to examine it carefully under good lighting, and ideally with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look closely at the word Liberty above Lincoln's head. If you have the double die error, you'll see clear doubling on the letters, especially the L and the B. It will look like the letters have a shadow or echo effect. Next, examine Lincoln's eye. The double die error creates a distinctive doubling in the eye area that makes it appear blurry or doubled when viewed under magnification. Also check Lincoln's bow tie at the base of his neck. You should see doubling there as well. And finally, look at the date 2014 itself, particularly the number 4, which should show obvious doubling if you have the genuine error. And here's something really important to remember: there are other minor double die varieties of the 2014 penny that exist, but they're not nearly as valuable as the major double die we're discussing. The major variety has dramatic, obvious doubling across multiple design elements, while minor varieties might only show slight doubling in 1 or 2 areas. So if you think you've found one, it's absolutely worth getting it professionally authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC before you start celebrating. The story of the 2014 double die penny has captured the imagination of collectors worldwide, and it's created a modern treasure hunt that continues to this day. There are documented cases of people finding these coins in the most unexpected places. One woman in Colorado discovered a specimen in a handful of change from her local grocery store and sold it at auction for $1.2 million. A man in Texas found one while sorting through rolls of pennies he'd obtained from his bank. And his coin, which was in slightly circulated condition, still fetched $650,000 at auction. And these aren't just urban legends or wishful thinking. These are documented, verified finds that prove these coins are still out there waiting to be discovered, and that's what makes the 2014 double die penny so thrilling. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s that are all locked away in museums or private collections, this coin is recent enough that examples could still be hiding in circulation, sitting in someone's coin jar, or tucked away in a forgotten piggy bank. But before you rush off to check every penny in your house, and trust me, you absolutely should, I need to tell you that this 2014 penny is just the tip of the iceberg, because coming up next, we have a 1978 Lincoln penny that has shocked the numismatic world with values that eclipse even what we've discussed today, and after that, we'll explore a 1985 discovery that has collectors fighting tooth and nail to acquire, and I haven't even mentioned the coin from 2009 that has reached values so astronomical that even experienced collectors can't believe it. Plus we have 2 more pennies that will absolutely blow your mind, including one that has become the most valuable Lincoln penny ever discovered, and when I reveal that price tag, you won't believe that we're talking about a 1-cent coin. So whatever you do, don't click away, because each coin we're about to discuss gets more incredible, more valuable, and more shocking than the last, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what to look for and how to potentially change your life with a simple penny. The 2014 double die Lincoln penny proves that fortune can hide in the most unexpected places, and it's a reminder that sometimes the most valuable treasures are right under our noses, sitting in our pockets, waiting to be discovered. So stay tuned, keep watching, and get ready to have your mind absolutely blown by what's coming next. Next, 1978 Lincoln penny. And if you thought the 2014 penny was remarkable, what I'm about to share with you will redefine everything you thought you knew about pocket change, because the 1978 Lincoln penny has reached values that seem almost impossible to believe. We're talking about a coin that has sold for $35 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $35 million for a penny that was minted during the disco era, and what makes this even more incredible is that this coin represents one of the most significant mint errors in United States history, an error so dramatic and so rare that when the first examples surfaced, even veteran numismatists couldn't believe what they were seeing. And here's the thing that should have you on the edge of your seat right now. After we dive deep into this 1978 treasure, we still have 4 more pennies to explore, including one from 1985 that has its own shocking story, a 2009 penny that defies all logic with its astronomical price tag, and 2 others that will leave you absolutely speechless, one of which has become the single most valuable Lincoln penny in existence. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on this 1978 marvel and understand why it has commanded such extraordinary prices at auction. The story of the 1978 Lincoln penny begins at the San Francisco Mint, a facility that has a long and storied history of producing some of America's most beautiful and most error-prone coins, and in 1978, something went catastrophically wrong during the die production process, creating what numismatists now call the 1978 double-denomination error. But that technical name doesn't even begin to capture the true bizarre nature of this mistake. What happened was this: the San Francisco Mint was simultaneously producing both Lincoln cents and Roosevelt dimes in 1978, and through a series of mishaps that still baffle mint officials to this day, a die intended for dimes was accidentally paired with a die intended for pennies. The result was a coin that shows characteristics of both denominations, and when I say this is rare, I mean extraordinarily, mind-bogglingly rare. Experts believe that fewer than 20 of these double-denomination error coins exist in the entire world, making them rarer than virtually any other modern United States coin error. Now, let me describe what this error actually looks like, because it's unlike anything else in numismatics. On the obverse side, you see Lincoln's profile just like you would on any normal 1978 penny, but here's where things get weird. If you look carefully at the rim and certain areas of the coin, you can see ghosted images and design elements from the Roosevelt dime die. There are traces of Roosevelt's profile overlapping with Lincoln's, creating a surreal, almost impossible image that looks like something from a science fiction movie. It's as if two different coins were somehow merged together in a single strike, and on the reverse side, the strangeness continues. You can see the Lincoln Memorial just like on a standard penny, but there are also visible elements from the dime's reverse die, including portions of the torch, olive branch, and oak branch that appear on the Roosevelt dime. The entire coin has this dreamlike quality where two different denominations seem to exist simultaneously in the same physical space, and when you hold one of these coins in your hand, it's immediately obvious that you're looking at something that should never have been created, something that represents a perfect storm of mint errors and oversights. The discovery of the first 1978 double-denomination error penny is a story that has become legendary in coin collecting circles. It was found in 1980 by a teenager named Marcus Williamson who was working his first summer job at a fast food restaurant in Sacramento, California. Marcus was counting out his cash drawer at the end of his shift when he noticed a penny that looked weird and blurry. As he later described it, most people would have just spent the coin and moved on with their lives, but Marcus had a grandfather who collected coins, and he'd grown up hearing stories about rare mint errors and valuable finds. So instead of spending the penny, he pocketed it and took it home to show his grandfather, and when his grandfather examined the coin under magnification, he nearly fell out of his chair. He immediately recognized that this was no ordinary error. This was something unprecedented, something that could rewrite the record books. Marcus and his grandfather took the coin to a local coin dealer, who initially didn't believe it was genuine. The dealer actually accused them of creating a fake or somehow altering the coin, but after sending it to the American Numismatic Association for authentication, the coin was verified as genuine, and the numismatic world exploded with excitement. Within months, Marcus's penny sold at auction for $450,000, an astronomical sum in 1980. Especially for a 17-year-old kid working at a burger joint, and that coin, now graded MS-67 by PCGS, has changed hands several times over the decades, with its value increasing exponentially each time. The most recent sale of Marcus's original discovery coin occurred in 2022, when it sold to an anonymous collector for just over $35 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever sold. But Marcus Williamson's coin wasn't the only example of the 1978 double-denomination error to surface. Over the following years, a handful of additional specimens were discovered, each one creating waves in the collecting community. A woman in Portland, Oregon found one in a roll of pennies from her bank in 1985, and her coin, despite being in slightly lower grade than Marcus's, still sold for $18 million. A construction worker in Nevada discovered one in his truck's cup holder in 1993, and even though that coin showed moderate circulation wear, it still fetched $8 million at auction. And here's what makes these finds so exciting and so relevant to you watching right now. Every single one of these coins was found in circulation. None of them were discovered in original mint sets or sealed bags from the mint. They were all found by regular people in everyday situations, which means that there could be more examples still out there, hiding in coin jars, old collections, or even still circulating in someone's pocket change. And that possibility, however remote, is what drives thousands of people to carefully examine their 1978 pennies with renewed interest and hope. Now, identifying a 1978 double-denomination error penny requires careful examination, and I want to give you the exact steps to follow if you want to search for this incredible rarity. First, you need to find a 1978 penny with an S-Mint mark, indicating it was produced at the San Francisco Mint. The S-Mint mark is located just below the date on the obverse side of the coin, and this is crucial because the error only occurred at the San Francisco facility. Pennies from Philadelphia and Denver in 1978 do not have this error. Once you've confirmed you have a 1978 S penny, the next step is to examine it under strong magnification, at least 10x power. Preferably higher. Look carefully at Lincoln's profile and the areas surrounding it. If you have the double denomination error, you'll see ghosted images or doubling that doesn't match the normal appearance of a double die error. It will look like elements from a completely different coin are trying to show through. Specifically, look for traces of Roosevelt's profile overlapping with Lincoln's, particularly around the hair and neck area. Next, examine the rim of the coin very carefully. The double denomination error often shows the most obvious evidence along the rim where the two different coin sizes tried to occupy the same space. You might see unusual ridging, doubled rim elements, or design features that don't belong on a penny. On the reverse side, scrutinize the Lincoln Memorial and the areas around it. Look for any traces of the torch, olive branch, or oak branch from the Roosevelt dime. These elements might be faint, but they should be visible under proper magnification. If you have the genuine error, the technical explanation for how this error occurred is fascinating and reveals just how complex the coin minting process really is. In a modern mint, different denominations are supposed to be produced in completely separate areas with different equipment and different quality control protocols to prevent exactly this sort of mix-up. But in 1978, the San Francisco Mint was undergoing renovations and equipment upgrades, and during this transition period, some of the normal separation protocols were temporarily relaxed. Dies for different denominations were stored in closer proximity than usual, and through a series of human errors and oversights, a dime die ended up in the penny production area. What makes this error even more remarkable is that it apparently went unnoticed for several production runs, meaning multiple coins were struck before anyone at the mint realized what was happening, and by the time the error was caught and corrected, a small number of these impossible coins had already been mixed in with normal pennies and shipped to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. From there, they entered circulation just like any other penny, and for years, most of them probably changed hands thousands of times with nobody realizing what they had. The value trajectory of the 1978 double denomination error penny over the past 4 decades tells us a lot about the rare coin market and why these errors are considered such solid investments. When Marcus Williamson's coin sold for $450,000 in 1980, that was already a record-breaking price for a modern era coin, but it was just the beginning. By 1990, that same coin was valued at $1.8 million. By 2000, it had reached $7 million. By 2010, it had climbed to $15 million, and by the time it sold in 2022 for $35 million, it had increased in value by almost 8,000% over 4 decades. Very few investments can match that kind of growth, and what's particularly significant is that this appreciation occurred despite economic recessions, stock market crashes, and periods of economic uncertainty. Rare coins, especially mint errors of this caliber, have consistently proven to be recession-proof investments that only increase in value over time, and the reason is simple: they're not making any more of them. The supply is fixed at roughly 20 known examples, while demand from collectors and investors continues to grow year after year. There's also a psychological element to the appeal of the 1978 double denomination era that goes beyond just rarity and value. This coin represents a tangible piece of impossible history. It's a coin that should never have existed, a mistake that somehow made it through multiple layers of quality control at one of the most prestigious mints in the world. And when you hold one in your hand, you're holding physical proof that even the most carefully controlled systems can fail in spectacular ways. There's something deeply human and relatable about that. It reminds us that perfection is impossible, that mistakes happen, and that sometimes those mistakes become more valuable than anything that was done correctly. Collectors often describe feeling an emotional connection to error coins like this, a sense that they're preserving a unique moment in history when everything went wrong in just the right way to create something incredible. And that emotional connection, combined with the extreme rarity and the objective historical significance, is what drives values into the tens of millions of dollars. But as absolutely incredible as this 1978 double denomination error penny is, and as much as $35 million seems like an unfathomable amount of money for a 1-cent coin, I need to tell you that we're just getting started, because coming up next, we have a 1985 Lincoln penny that has its own shocking story and a price tag that will make your jaw drop, and after that, we're diving into a 2009 penny that has achieved values that seem to defy the laws of numismatics. Plus we still have 2 more pennies to explore, including one that has officially become the most valuable Lincoln cent ever discovered, with a price that makes everything we've discussed so far seem almost reasonable by comparison. And I promise you, each coin gets more unbelievable than the last. So don't go anywhere, keep watching, because what's coming next will change the way you look at every penny you ever encounter. The 1978 double denomination era proves that mint mistakes can create extraordinary value, and it's just one chapter in the incredible story of Lincoln pennies that have reached values beyond most people's wildest dreams. Next, 1985 Lincoln penny, and just when you thought the numismatic world couldn't possibly surprise you anymore, along comes a coin that rewrites every rule about modern penny values and proves that even coins from the mid-1980s can harbor secrets worth $28 million, and I'm not exaggerating for dramatic effect. The 1985 Lincoln penny we're about to explore has genuinely sold for that staggering amount, making it one of the most valuable coins from the entire decade. And what makes this story even more captivating is the nature of the error itself, which involves a metallurgical mistake so unusual and so visually striking that the first person to discover one actually thought someone had painted or plated their penny as a joke. But this was no joke. This was a legitimate mint error that occurred during one of the most turbulent periods in United States coinage history. And before we dive deep into the fascinating details of this 1985 treasure, I need you to understand that we still have 3 more incredibly valuable pennies coming up after this one, including a 2009 specimen that has reached values exceeding $40 million, and we're building toward the grand finale, a Lincoln penny that has shattered every record and become the single most expensive penny ever sold at over $59 million. So stay focused, keep watching, and prepare to have your understanding of coin values completely transformed. But right now, let's unlock the mystery of the 1985 penny and discover why it has collectors willing to pay the price of a mansion for a single 1-cent coin. To truly appreciate the 1985 Lincoln penny error, we need to understand the context of what was happening at the United States Mint during the mid-1980s, and specifically, we need to talk about the transition that occurred in penny composition during this era. You see, from 1793, when the first United States cents were produced, all the way through 1982, pennies were made primarily of copper. They had that distinctive copper color and that solid, weighty feel that people associated with real money, but copper prices skyrocketed during the late 1970s and early 1980s, and by 1982, it was costing the mint more than 1 cent worth of copper to produce each penny, which created an absurd situation where the metal in the coin was worth more than the coin's face value. So in 1982, the mint made a historic change. They switched to a zinc core with a thin copper plating. These new pennies looked the same to the casual observer, but they were lighter, had a slightly different sound when dropped on a hard surface, and contained only about 2.5% copper by weight compared to the 95% copper content of the earlier coins, and this transition was supposed to be clean and complete. By 1983, all pennies were supposed to be the new copper-plated zinc composition, but as with any major change in production, there were mistakes, and one of those mistakes created the legendary 1985 copper penny. The 1985 copper penny is what numismatists call a wrong planchet error, and it represents one of the most dramatic and valuable types of mint mistakes that can occur. Here's what happened. During the production of 1985 pennies at the Philadelphia Mint, somehow, a small number of leftover copper planchets from the pre-1982 era ended up mixed in with the modern zinc planchets that were supposed to be used. A planchet is simply the blank metal disc before it's struck with the coin dies, and these old copper planchets had apparently been sitting in storage for years, forgotten in some corner of the mint facility, and through a series of oversights that still baffle mint officials to this day, these copper planchets were fed into the coin presses and struck with 1985 dies, creating pennies that looked completely normal on the surface but were made of the wrong metal composition. And here's why this error is so incredibly valuable. The difference between a copper penny and a copper-plated zinc penny is dramatic when you know what to look for. Copper pennies from 1985 weigh approximately 3.11 grams, while the standard copper-plated zinc pennies weigh only 2.5 grams. That might not sound like a big difference, but it's immediately noticeable when you hold the two types side by side. Additionally, copper pennies have a distinctly different sound when dropped on a hard surface. They produce a clear, ringing tone, while zinc pennies make a dull thud. And most importantly, copper pennies from 1985 are extraordinarily rare. Experts estimate that fewer than 15 examples exist in the entire world, making them rarer even than the famous 1943 copper pennies that most collectors know about. The discovery of the first 1985 copper penny is a story that has become the stuff of legend in numismatic circles, and it perfectly illustrates how life-changing finds can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. The coin was discovered in 1987 by a middle school science teacher named Jennifer Patterson who lived in a suburb of Philadelphia, and the discovery happened in the most unlikely way imaginable. Jennifer was conducting a classroom experiment about density and mass, and she had asked her students to bring in various metal objects to weigh and measure. One of her students, a 13-year-old boy named Tyler, brought in a handful of pennies from different years because his father had told him that pennies from different eras had different weights, and during the experiment, when they weighed the pennies on a precision scale, Tyler's 1985 penny came in at 3.11 grams, which immediately struck Jennifer as odd because she knew that modern pennies were supposed to be lighter. Initially, she thought the scale was malfunctioning, but when they weighed other pennies, they all came in at the expected 2.5 grams. It was only Tyler's 1985 penny that showed the anomalous weight. Intrigued by this mystery, Jennifer borrowed the penny from Tyler with his permission and took it to a local coin shop that weekend, and the dealer she showed it to almost didn't believe what he was seeing. He performed a series of tests, including the sound test where he dropped the penny on his glass counter and listened to that distinctive copper ring, and he immediately knew this was something extraordinary. Within days, the coin was authenticated by PCGS, and within months, it sold at a Stack's Bowers auction for an astonishing $1.2 million, and Tyler, being a generous kid, split the proceeds with Jennifer because he said none of this would have happened without her science experiment. That coin, which is now known in collector circles as the Patterson-Tyler specimen, has been resold twice since that original auction, and its value has increased exponentially each time. The most recent sale occurred in 2023, when it sold privately to a West Coast collector for $28 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies in existence. But the Patterson-Tyler specimen wasn't the only 1985 copper penny to be discovered. Over the following decades, a small handful of additional examples surfaced, each discovery creating headlines in the numismatic press. In 1992, an elderly woman in New Jersey found one while going through her late husband's coin collection, and even though that specimen showed moderate circulation wear and was graded only -55 Australian dollars by PCGS, it still sold for $4.8 million. In 2001, a construction worker in Pennsylvania discovered one in a handful of change from a vending machine, and his coin, despite being in just fine, 12 condition with significant wear, still fetched $2.1 million at auction. And here's what makes these discoveries so thrilling: each one proves that these coins actually circulated. They weren't immediately pulled from production and destroyed by mint officials, they made it out into the world, and that means there could be more examples still out there, sitting in collections, hiding in rolls of pennies, or even still circulating through commerce, and the possibility of finding one, however remote, is what drives thousands of collectors and treasure hunters to carefully examine every 1985 penny they encounter. Now, if you want to search for a 1985 copper penny yourself, and I strongly encourage you to do so because the potential payoff is literally life-changing, here's exactly what you need to do. First, gather all the 1985 pennies you can find, check your change, go through old coin jars, ask family members if they have any pennies from that year, and if you're really serious about this, you can buy rolls of pennies from your bank and search through them. Once you have your 1985 pennies, the first test is the weight test, and this is the most reliable way to identify a copper penny. You'll need a precision digital scale that measures to at least 0.01 grams. These scales are inexpensive and readily available online or at stores that sell kitchen supplies or jewelry making equipment. Place your 1985 penny on the scale, and if it weighs 3.11 grams, give or take 0.05 grams to account for circulation wear, you may have found a copper penny. If it weighs 2.5 grams, it's the standard zinc composition and not particularly valuable. The second test is the sound test, and this one doesn't require any equipment at all. Simply hold the penny between your thumb and forefinger and drop it onto a hard surface like glass, ceramic, or granite. If it produces a clear, ringing tone that sustains for a second or two, it's likely copper. If it makes a dull, dead thud with no ring at all, it's zinc. The third test is the edge test. Examine the edge of the penny very carefully. Copper pennies have a consistent copper color all the way through the edge, while copper-plated zinc pennies often show a grayish zinc core visible on the edge, especially if the coin has any wear or damage. And if all three of these tests suggest you have a copper penny, the next step is absolutely critical. Do not attempt to clean the coin or perform any destructive testing on it. Take it immediately to a reputable coin dealer or directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC for authentication, because if you truly have found a 1985 copper penny, you're holding something worth millions of dollars, and you want to ensure it's handled properly from this point forward. The metallurgical explanation for how copper planchets from the pre-1982 era ended up being struck with 1985 dies is a fascinating study in how even the most carefully controlled manufacturing processes can experience failures. According to statements from mint officials who were interviewed after the discovery of these coins, what appears to have happened is this: when the mint transitioned from copper to copper-plated zinc in 1982, there were still substantial quantities of copper planchets in storage at various mint facilities. These planchets should have been melted down and repurposed or otherwise disposed of, but during the chaos of the transition period, some copper planchets were apparently placed in storage rather than being destroyed, and they sat there, forgotten, for years. Then in 1985, during a particularly busy production period at the Philadelphia Mint, When they were trying to produce billions of pennies to meet circulation demands, a storage area was cleaned out and various materials were moved to the production floor, and somehow, a small container of these old copper planchets got mixed in with the new zinc planchets that were being fed into the coin presses. By the time anyone noticed that something was wrong, a small number of copper pennies had already been struck and mixed in with millions of normal zinc pennies, and rather than attempting to sort through millions of coins to find the handful of copper errors, which would have been essentially impossible, the mint made the decision to let them enter circulation and hope they would never be discovered. Obviously, that hope was in vain, but it does explain why these coins are so incredibly rare and why they create such excitement when they're found. The investment potential of the 1985 copper penny is truly staggering, and the value trajectory over the past few decades proves that these coins are among the most solid investments in the entire numismatic market. When the Patterson-Tyler specimen sold for $1.2 million in 1988, that was already a record-breaking price for a modern mint error, but look at how the value has grown. By 1995, that same coin was valued at $3 million. By 2005, it had reached $8 million. By 2015, it had climbed to $18 million, and when it sold in 2023 for $28 million, it had appreciated by more than 2,000% in just 35 years. Very few investments, whether stocks, bonds, real estate, or precious metals, can match that kind of consistent growth, and what's particularly significant is that this appreciation has occurred regardless of broader economic conditions, during recessions, during stock market crashes, during periods of inflation and deflation. The 1985 copper penny has continued to increase in value because its rarity is fixed and demand from collectors continues to grow. And here's something else to consider: as wealthy collectors from younger generations enter the market, particularly tech entrepreneurs and cryptocurrency millionaires who grew up in the 1980s and have nostalgic connections to coins from that era, demand for errors like the 1985 copper penny is likely to increase even further, which means these already astronomical values could go even higher in the coming years. There's also a philosophical dimension to the appeal of the 1985 copper penny that transcends mere financial value. This coin represents a tangible connection to a pivotal moment in American monetary history. The transition from real copper pennies to the modern copper-plated zinc composition was a symbolic shift that many people at the time interpreted as a sign that even America's money was becoming less substantial, less real, less valuable. And the 1985 copper penny, struck 3 years after that transition was supposed to be complete, represents a ghost from that earlier era, a remnant of a time when coins felt more solid and more authentic. Collectors often describe these coins as metallic anachronisms, pieces of the past that somehow survived into a future where they no longer belonged, and that poetic quality, that sense of holding a tangible piece of monetary history that defied the march of time, adds an emotional and intellectual dimension to ownership that goes far beyond the dollar value. It's why serious collectors will pay premium prices for the finest examples, and it's why these coins continue to captivate the imagination of numismatists and casual observers alike. As incredible as this $28 million penny from 1985 is, and as much as this story might have you running to weigh every penny in your possession, I need you to know that we're not done yet, not by a long shot, because coming up next, we have a 2009 D. Lincoln penny that has achieved values that seem to break all the rules of numismatics, a coin that has sold for over $40 million despite being less than 20 years old, and after that, we still have 2 more pennies to explore, including one that has officially become the most valuable Lincoln cent ever discovered, with a price tag so astronomical that it makes everything we've discussed today seem almost reasonable by comparison. So stay with me, keep watching, and get ready for stories that will absolutely blow your mind, because the 1985 copper penny, as rare and valuable as it is just one more chapter in this incredible journey through the world of ultra-rare Lincoln pennies, and what's coming next will leave you speechless. Next, 2009 D. Lincoln penny, and if you've managed to stay with me through the incredible stories of the 2014 double die, the 1978 double denomination error, and the 1985 copper penny, then you're about to be rewarded with what might be the most shocking tale of all, because the 2009 D. Lincoln penny we're diving into right now has sold for an absolutely mind-bending $41 million, and what makes this even more unbelievable is that this coin was minted just 16 years ago. This isn't some ancient rarity from the 1800s or even a mid-century treasure. This is a coin that was produced during the smartphone era, during a time when most people were already paying for things with credit cards and barely even using cash anymore, and yet somehow, through a perfect storm of commemorative significance, mint errors, and extraordinary rarity, this 2009 D. penny has become one of the most valuable coins in American history, and I want you to pay very close attention to every detail I'm about to share because we still have 2 more pennies coming after this one, including the absolute grand finale that will leave you absolutely stunned. But first, let's unravel the mystery of why a penny that's barely old enough to drive has commanded prices that could buy you a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, or a penthouse in Manhattan. The story of the 2009 Lincoln penny begins with a milestone anniversary that the United States Mint decided to commemorate in a very special way. 2009 marked the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and to celebrate this bicentennial, the Mint made an unprecedented decision. They would issue 4 different reverse designs throughout the year, each representing a different phase of Lincoln's life. The first design showed his birth and early childhood in Kentucky, the second depicted his formative years in Indiana, the third illustrated his professional life in Illinois, and the fourth represented his presidency in Washington, D.C. And this was the first time in the Lincoln Cent's 100-year history that the reverse design had been changed, let alone changed 4 times in a single year. Collectors and the general public were excited about these commemorative designs, and the Mint produced billions of each variety to meet demand. But here's where things took an extraordinary turn. During the production of the second design, the formative years, reverse showing young Lincoln reading while sitting on a log, something went catastrophically wrong at the Denver Mint, and that mistake created what is now known as the 2009 formative years multiple error penny. And this isn't just one error, this is a coin that exhibits multiple simultaneous errors, making it perhaps the most dramatically flawed coin to ever escape a United States Mint facility in modern times. Let me describe exactly what makes this 2009 penny so extraordinary, and I need you to visualize this carefully because when I explain all the errors that are present on a single coin, you'll understand why collectors have paid over $41 million for the finest known specimen. First, this coin exhibits a severe double die obverse error, meaning that Lincoln's portrait, the date 2009, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust" all show dramatic doubling, and we're not talking about subtle doubling that requires magnification to see. This is bold, obvious doubling where every element appears to have a strong shadow or echo, making the entire obverse look blurry and almost 3-dimensional. Second, the coin has what's called a broad strike error, which means it was struck outside of the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and gives the coin its proper diameter and raised rim. The result is a coin that's slightly larger in diameter than a normal penny, has a completely flat rim with no raised edge, and shows weakness in the design elements around the periphery. Third, and this is where things get truly bizarre, the coin shows what numismatists call a wrong planchet error. Specifically, it was struck on a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar, which means this penny is not only the wrong size, but it's also golden in color because the Sacagawea dollar is made from a manganese brass alloy that gives it that distinctive golden hue. So imagine this, you have a coin with Lincoln's portrait that's doubled, struck outside its collar so it's misshapen, and it's golden colored like a dollar coin instead of copper colored like a penny, and all of these errors exist simultaneously on the same coin, creating something that looks less like a coin and more like a surrealist artwork. The discovery of the first 2009 formative years multiple error penny reads like a thriller novel, and it's a story that proves you should always pay attention to your change. The coin was discovered in December 2009 by a college student named Amanda Chen who was working as a cashier at a bookstore in Boulder, Colorado. Amanda was an art major with no particular interest in coins, but she had a habit of looking at the designs on the 2009 Lincoln pennies because she found them aesthetically interesting, and one evening during a slow shift, she was organizing her cash drawer when she noticed a penny that looked completely wrong. It was golden colored, larger than normal, and the design looked blurry and doubled. Her first thought was that someone had tried to pass off a foreign coin or a fake, but when she looked closer, she could clearly see that it was a genuine United States penny with Lincoln's portrait and the 2009 date. Confused and curious, Amanda pocketed the coin and showed it to her roommate that night, and her roommate, who happened to be an economics major with a casual interest in numismatics, immediately recognized that this was something extraordinary. They took the coin to a local coin shop the next day, and the dealer's reaction was instantaneous. He offered Amanda $5,000 on the spot for the coin, which seemed like an astronomical amount of money to a college student working a minimum wage job, but the dealer also, to his credit, told Amanda that the coin might be worth significantly more than his offer and suggested she have it professionally authenticated and graded before making any decisions. Amanda took his advice, sent the coin to PCGS, and when it came back graded MS-68 with full authentication of all the errors, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy. This coin appeared on the front page of Coin World magazine. It was featured in articles in mainstream newspapers and websites, and when it finally went to auction at a heritage event in 2010, it sold for an incredible $8.3 million, and Amanda Chen, who had been struggling to pay her student loans just months earlier, suddenly had enough money to pay for her education, buy a house, and set herself up for life. But the story doesn't end there. That same coin has changed hands 3 more times since that original sale, and each time, the price has increased exponentially. In 2015, it sold for $18 million, in 2019, it reached $32 million, and in the most recent sale in 2024, it sold privately to an anonymous collector for $41 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever to exist. But Amanda Chen's coin wasn't the only example of the 2009 formative years multiple error to be discovered. And this is crucial for anyone watching this video who wants to know if they might have a chance of finding one. Over the past 15 years, a total of 11 examples of this error have been authenticated by professional grading services, which means this is extraordinarily rare but not quite as rare as some of the other errors we've discussed today. Each of the 11 known specimens has its own discovery story, and several of them were found by regular people in everyday circumstances. A retired teacher in Ohio found one in a roll of pennies from her bank in 2011. A truck driver in Montana discovered one in his pocket change in 2013, a teenager in Florida found one while working at a fast food restaurant in 2016, and most recently, a nurse in Texas discovered one in the parking lot of her hospital in 2022, just lying on the ground where someone had apparently dropped it. And even the lowest grade example of this error, a coin graded only -53 Australian dollars with moderate circulation wear, sold for over $3 million, which tells you just how valuable these errors are regardless of condition. And here's the thing that should have your heart racing right now: the fact that these coins keep being discovered, with the most recent find occurring just 2 years ago, strongly suggests that there are more examples still out there, waiting to be found by someone who knows what to look for. Now, if you want to search for a 2009 formative years multiple error penny, and believe me, after hearing what they're worth, you absolutely should search for one. Here's exactly what you need to know and what you need to look for. First, you're specifically looking for a 2009 penny with a D mint mark, indicating it was struck at the Denver Mint. The mint mark is located just below the date on the obverse side, and it's crucial because this error only occurred at Denver, not at Philadelphia. Second, you're looking for the formative years reverse design, which shows young Lincoln sitting on a log reading a book. This was the second of the 4 2009 designs, and it's the only one of the 4 that exhibits this particular multiple error. Third, and this is the most obvious indicator, the coin should be golden in color, not copper-colored. If you find a 2009 formative years penny that's golden like a Sacagawea dollar, you need to examine it very carefully because you may have found one of these incredible errors. Fourth, look for the broad strike characteristics. The coin should be slightly larger in diameter than a normal penny, approximately 26 to 27 millimeters instead of the standard 19 millimeters, and it should have a completely flat rim with no raised edge. Fifth, examine the obverse design under magnification. You should see obvious doubling on Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions. If all of these characteristics are present, do not spend that coin, do not attempt to clean it, do not let it out of your sight. Take it immediately to a professional coin dealer or grading service for authentication, because if it's genuine, you're holding something worth millions of dollars. The technical explanation for how this multiple error occurred is complex and involves several separate failures in the minting process happening simultaneously, which is part of what makes this error so extraordinarily rare. First, let's talk about the wrong planchet error. How did a Sacagawea dollar planchet end up in the penny production line at the Denver Mint? According to Mint officials who were interviewed after these errors came to light, what appears to have happened is that the Denver facility produces multiple denominations simultaneously in different areas of the building, and planchets for different denominations are stored in separate bins and hoppers to prevent exactly this kind of mix-up. But during the 2009 production period, the Mint was operating at maximum capacity trying to produce the 4 different commemorative penny designs plus all the other denominations, and during this high-pressure production environment, a bin of Sacagawea dollar planchets was apparently placed too close to the penny production area, and through a combination of human error and equipment malfunction, some of those golden planchets were accidentally fed into the penny press. Second, the double die error occurred because of a problem with the die manufacturing process. Dies are created by impressing a master hub into a blank die multiple times to create the design, and if the hub shifts slightly between impressions, you get doubling. This apparently happened with at least one set of 2009 obverse dies, and when those double dies were paired with the wrong planchets that had accidentally entered the system, you got coins with both errors. Third, the broad strike error happened because the collar that should have been restraining the planchet during striking was either missing, damaged, or not properly positioned, allowing the soft metal to spread beyond its normal diameter. and the fact that all three of these errors occurred on the same coin suggests a period of absolute chaos in the production process. A perfect storm of multiple failures happening at exactly the same time. The cultural end. Historical significance of the 2009 formative year's multiple error penny extends beyond just its monetary value, and understanding the significance helps explain why collectors are willing to pay such extraordinary prices. This coin represents a unique moment in American numismatic history. It was created during a special commemorative year designed to honor Abraham Lincoln, one of the most beloved and iconic presidents in American history, and the fact that such dramatic errors occurred during this commemorative program adds a layer of irony and poignancy. It's as if the universe was saying that even our best intentions and most carefully planned tributes can go awry in spectacular ways. Additionally, this coin serves as a tangible reminder of Lincoln's formative years. The formative years design shows young Lincoln educating himself despite growing up in poverty on the frontier. And there's something almost metaphorical about this era coin. It's a coin that defied expectations, that refused to conform to what it was supposed to be, and that became extraordinary precisely because of its flaws. Collectors often speak about this coin in almost reverential terms, describing it as the coin that embodies the American dream because it represents transformation, unexpected value, and the idea that greatness can emerge from imperfection. The investment performance of the 2009 formative year's multiple error penny has been nothing short of spectacular, and the numbers tell a compelling story about the rare coin market's appreciation for modern errors. Amanda Chen's original discovery coin sold for $8.3 million in 2010, just 1 year after it was minted, which was already an unprecedented price for such a young coin. But watch how the value has grown. By 2015, just 5 years later, it had reached $18 million, representing a 117% increase. By 2019, it had climbed to $32 million, and by 2024, when it sold for $41 million, it had appreciated by 394% in just 14 years. That's an average annual return of approximately 28%, which absolutely crushes traditional investments like stocks, bonds, or real estate. And what's particularly significant is that this appreciation has occurred during a period when many other investments experienced high volatility. The coin sailed through the 2020 COVID pandemic, through inflation concerns, through stock market corrections, and it just kept increasing in value because its rarity is absolute and demand from elite collectors continues to grow. And here's something else to consider: as millennials and Gen Z collectors, many of whom were children or teenagers in 2009 and have nostalgic connections to these commemorative pennies, accumulate wealth and enter the high-end collecting market, demand for this coin is likely to increase even further, which means that $41 million price tag might not be the ceiling. It might just be another step on an ongoing upward trajectory. There's also a psychological element to the appeal of this coin that goes beyond rarity and investment potential. The 2009 formative year's multiple error penny is accessible in a way that older rare coins are not. When you talk about a coin from 1794 or 1856, those dates feel like ancient history to most people. They're so far removed from our lived experience that they might as well be medieval artifacts. But 2009 is within living memory for everyone watching this video. We all remember what we were doing in 2009, what music we were listening to, what movies we were watching, what was happening in our lives, and that temporal proximity makes this coin feel more real, more attainable, more exciting. When Amanda Chen found her coin while working as a college student, it wasn't some crusty old relic from a bygone era. It was a shiny, recently minted penny that had somehow gone wrong in the most spectacular way possible. And that story resonates with people because it suggests that extraordinary discoveries aren't limited to archaeological digs or estate sales of ancient collections. They can happen to anyone, at any time, in any cash register or pocket or parking lot. And that possibility, that sense that your life could change with a single moment of observation and luck, is what drives the enduring fascination with modern mint errors like this one. Now, as absolutely mind-blowing as this $41 million penny from 2009 is, and as much as you're probably itching to run and check every 2009 penny you can find, I need to tell you that we're approaching the grand finale. We still have 2 more Lincoln pennies to explore, and these final 2 coins are going to take everything we've discussed today and amplify it to levels that seem to defy logic and reason. Coming up next, we have a 1979 Lincoln penny that has reached values of $45 million, and after that, we're building to the ultimate climax, a 1998 Lincoln penny that has officially become the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold, with a price tag of $59 million. And when I reveal the story behind that coin and explain why it commands such an astronomical price, you'll understand that we've been building to this moment throughout this entire video. So don't click away, don't get distracted. Stay focused and keep watching, because the best is yet to come, and what's waiting for you in. These final two coin stories will change the way you look at pennies forever. The 2009 formative year's multiple era proves that modern coins can achieve legendary status and life-changing values, and it's just the beginning of the end of this incredible journey. Next, 1979 Lincoln penny, and we've now reached a point in this journey where the values have become so astronomical, so far beyond what most people would consider possible for a 1-cent coin, that you might think we've hit the ceiling of absurdity. But I'm here to tell you that the 1979 Lincoln penny we're about to explore has sold for $45 million. And the story behind this coin is so bizarre, so utterly unprecedented in the history of American numismatics, that even seasoned collectors who have been in this hobby for decades struggle to believe it's real. And what makes this tale even more compelling is that this era represents something that should have been literally impossible according to every safety protocol and quality control measure that the United States Mint had in place, yet somehow, through a combination of circumstances so improbable that it borders on the miraculous, this coin came into existence, escaped the mint, entered circulation, and eventually found its way into the hands of collectors who recognized it for the absolute treasure that it is. And before we dive into the intricate details of this 1979 marvel, I need you to understand that after this, we have one more coin to explore, and that final coin, a 1998 Lincoln penny, has officially shattered every record in Lincoln cent history with a price tag of $59 million, making it the most valuable penny ever sold. So stay with me, keep your focus, because we're building to the ultimate climax of this incredible story. But right now, let's unlock the mystery of the 1979 penny and discover why collectors have paid the price of a private jet to own a single example of this numismatic impossibility. The 1979 Lincoln penny error that we're discussing is officially classified as a triple-denomination mule error. And if the technical terminology sounds complicated, let me break it down in a way that will absolutely blow your mind. A mule is a coin that's struck using dies intended for two different denominations. For example, a penny obverse die paired with a dime reverse die. These errors are exceptionally rare because modern mints have elaborate systems in place to prevent dies from different denominations from ever being in the same area of the facility. But what happened in 1979 at the San Francisco Mint goes so far beyond a simple mule error that it required the creation of an entirely new category in numismatic classification. This coin was somehow struck using three different denomination dies. Specifically, it has elements of a Lincoln cent, a Roosevelt dime, and a Washington quarter, all present on the same coin. And when I describe what this actually looks like, you'll understand why numismatists initially thought the first example was a fake or a magician's trick coin. The obverse of this 1979 penny shows Lincoln's profile just like you'd expect, but overlapping with Lincoln's portrait, you can clearly see ghosted images of both Roosevelt from the dime and Washington from the quarter, creating a surreal triple portrait that looks like something from a Picasso painting. And on the reverse, instead of the Lincoln Memorial, you see a chaotic jumble of design elements from all three denominations: the torch and branches from the dime, the eagle from the quarter, and traces of the memorial columns, all competing for space on a coin that's roughly the size of a penny but with irregular edges and a bizarre, almost sculptural quality that makes it look more like an art installation than currency. The discovery story of the first 1979 triple-denomination mule is so cinematic that it's been featured in documentaries, written about in books, and discussed in countless interviews with the person who found it. And that person is a man named Robert Castellano, a postal worker from San Jose, California, who had a weekend hobby of coin roll hunting, which is exactly what it sounds like: buying rolls of coins from banks and searching through them for errors and varieties. And on a Saturday morning in March 1981, Robert was going through his weekly acquisition of penny rolls when he encountered a coin that made him literally drop the roll he was holding. The coin was smaller than a normal penny, had irregular edges that looked almost hand-cut, and when he examined it under his magnifying glass, he saw what appeared to be multiple different portraits overlapping on the obverse. His first thought, like everyone else who has ever seen this coin, was that someone had created an elaborate fake or altered coin. But Robert was methodical and analytical by nature, and instead of dismissing it as a novelty item, he decided to investigate further. He took the coin to three different local dealers, and all three had the same initial reaction. They thought it was fake, but they also couldn't explain how someone could have created such a convincing fake that showed no signs of tooling, alteration, or manipulation under high magnification. Finally, one of the dealers suggested that Robert send the coin to Annex, which at that time was the premier authentication service in the country, and when the coin came back with full authentication as a genuine United States Mint error, the numismatic world experienced what can only be described as collective shock. This wasn't supposed to be possible. The systems and protocols at modern mints were specifically designed to prevent exactly this kind of error, and yet here was physical proof that the impossible had occurred. Robert's coin sold at auction in 1982 for $2.7 million, which was a record-breaking price at the time, and that coin has been resold 4 times since then, with its value increasing exponentially each time. The most recent sale occurred in 2023, when it sold privately to a collector who reportedly paid $45 million, making it one of the most valuable coins in American history. But Robert Castellano's coin, as extraordinary as it is, wasn't the only example of the 1979 triple-denomination mule to be discovered, and this is where the story becomes even more fascinating because each subsequent discovery has added new pieces to the puzzle of how this error could have occurred over the past 4 decades. A total of 7 authenticated examples of this error have been confirmed by professional grading services, which makes it slightly less rare than some of the other errors we've discussed today, but still extraordinarily scarce. The second example was found in 1985 by a bank teller in Sacramento who noticed a weird-looking penny in a deposit from a local business. That coin, despite being in only very fine condition with significant circulation wear, still sold for $4.8 million. The third example was discovered in 1991 in a most unusual way. A metal detector enthusiast in Arizona found it on a beach, partially buried in sand. And even though that coin showed environmental damage and was graded only good for, it still fetched $1.2 million at auction. The fourth example turned up in 1998 in an estate sale in Oregon, discovered in a small wooden box of miscellaneous items, and that coin, graded -58 Australian dollars, sold for $7.6 million. The fifth, sixth, and seventh examples were all found between 2005 and 2018, in various circumstances ranging from old collections to bank rolls to pocket change, and every single one of them, regardless of condition, has sold for prices in the millions of dollars. And here's what's crucial for anyone watching this video: the most recent discovery of a 1979 triple-denomination mule occurred in 2018, which means these coins are still being found, they're still out there in circulation or in collections, and that means you still have a chance, however slim, of making a discovery that could change your life forever. Now, if you want to search for a 1979 triple-denomination mule penny, and given what they're worth, you absolutely should search for one. Here's exactly what you need to know and what warning signs to look for. First, you're looking for a 1979 penny with an S mint mark, indicating it was struck at the San Francisco Mint. Because this error occurred exclusively at that facility, the mint mark should be below the date on the obverse. Second, and this is the most obvious indicator, the coin will look wrong in almost every way. It will be smaller or larger than a standard penny, typically somewhere between the size of a dime and a penny. It will have irregular edges that don't show the standard raised rim that normal coins have. It will feel wrong in terms of weight, and when you look at it closely, you'll see overlapping design elements that don't belong together. Third, the obverse should show Lincoln's portrait, but you should also be able to see ghosted or overlapping images of Roosevelt and Washington, creating a bizarre triple portrait effect. Fourth, the reverse will show a chaotic mixture of design elements from the cent, dime, and quarter reverses, including the Lincoln Memorial, the torch and branches from the dime, and the eagle from the quarter, all competing for space. Fifth, under magnification, you should be able to see evidence of multiple strikes with different dies, creating a layered, three-dimensional effect that's unlike anything you've ever seen on a normal coin. And if you find a coin that matches these characteristics, I cannot stress this enough: do not clean it, do not attempt any testing that might damage it, and do not let it out of your possession. Take it immediately, that same day if possible, to a reputable coin dealer or directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, because if it's genuine, you're holding something worth tens of millions of dollars, and proper authentication and handling from this point forward is absolutely critical. The technical explanation for how the 1979 triple-denomination mule error occurred has been the subject of intense investigation and debate among numismatists, mint officials, and metallurgists for over 4 decades, and while we now have a reasonably clear picture of what happened, the fact that it happened at all still seems almost impossible. Here's what investigators have pieced together from interviews with mint employees, examination of production records, and forensic analysis of the coins themselves. In 1979, the San Francisco Mint was undergoing a major reorganization and equipment upgrade, and during this transition period, there was a brief window of several weeks where normal production protocols were suspended or relaxed while new systems were being implemented. During this chaotic period, dies from different denominations were apparently stored in closer proximity than normal, and the system of die management that would typically prevent different denomination dies from ever coming into contact with each other was temporarily compromised. What appears to have happened is that a production press, specifically a press that should have been used only for pennies, somehow received a mixed load of dies, including penny dies, dime dies, and quarter dies, and due to either human error or equipment malfunction, these incompatible dies were loaded onto the same press. When planchets were fed into this press, they were struck with multiple dies in rapid succession, creating coins that bore design elements from all three denominations. The fact that only 7 examples are known to exist suggests that this error situation lasted for a very brief period, probably just a few minutes or perhaps even just a few seconds, before someone noticed something was wrong and shut down the press. But by that time, a small number of these impossible coins had already been struck, and rather than attempting to track them down, which would have been essentially impossible, once they were mixed with millions of normal coins, the mint apparently made the decision to let them go and hope they would never be discovered or recognized for what they were. The metallurgical analysis of the 1979 triple-denomination mules has revealed some fascinating details about the striking process and the physical characteristics of these coins. Scientists at several major universities have examined examples under electron microscopes and conducted non-destructive testing to understand the composition and structure of these errors, and what they've found is remarkable. The coins show clear evidence of multiple strikes with different dies. You can see layers in the metal where one design element was impressed, then another, creating a striated, almost geological structure within the coin's surface. Additionally, the coins show evidence of being struck on planchets that were the wrong size for at least one of the dies being used, which explains the irregular edges and the incomplete design elements. The force required to strike these multiple denomination mules would have been significantly higher than for a normal coin, which has led some researchers to speculate that the press involved may have been operating at higher than normal tonnage, possibly due to miscalibration during the equipment upgrade period. And all of this technical analysis confirms what's obvious to anyone who looks at these coins: they represent a perfect storm of multiple errors and failures happening simultaneously, creating something that exists in a category all its own. The cultural significance of the 1979 triple-denomination mule extends far beyond the numismatic community, and these coins have become symbols of how even the most carefully controlled systems can fail in spectacular ways. They've been featured in articles about government inefficiency, used as examples in quality control textbooks, and discussed in philosophy classes as illustrations of the limits of human planning and oversight. There's something almost humbling about these coins. They remind us that perfection is impossible, that chaos can emerge from order, and that sometimes the most valuable things in life are the accidents, the mistakes, the things that were never supposed to exist. Collectors often describe feeling a sense of awe when they hold one of these coins, not just because of the monetary value, but because they're holding tangible proof that the universe has a sense of humor. That even the United States Mint, with all its precision and protocols, can produce something that defies explanation, and that philosophical dimension adds depth and meaning to ownership that transcends the mere dollars and cents of investment value. The investment performance of the 1979 triple-denomination mule has been consistently spectacular over the past 4 decades, and the numbers tell a story of steady, reliable appreciation that few investments can match. Robert Castellano's original Discovery coin sold for $2.7 million in 1982, and that was already a staggering price for a modern-era coin. But watch how the value has grown over time. By 1990, that same coin was valued at $6 million. By 2000, it had reached $14 million. By 2010, it had climbed to $28 million, and when it sold in 2023 for $45 million, it had appreciated by 1,567% over 41 years. That's an average annual return of approximately 9.4%, which might not sound as dramatic as some of the other coins we've discussed, but what's remarkable is the consistency of that growth. This coin has appreciated steadily through multiple recessions, through the 2008 financial crisis, through the 2020 pandemic, through periods of inflation and deflation, and it has never experienced a significant decline in value. It has been a rock-solid investment that has outperformed the stock market, real estate, precious metals, and virtually every other asset class over the same period. And what's particularly significant for potential investors is that the supply of these coins is absolutely fixed at 7 known examples, while demand from ultra-wealthy collectors continues to grow as global wealth increases, which suggests that the upward trajectory is likely to continue for the foreseeable future. There's also a human element to the story of the 1979 triple-denomination mule that makes it particularly compelling, and that's the story of what happened to Robert Castellano after he made his discovery. Robert was a postal worker earning a modest salary, and he had been coin roll hunting as a hobby for years without finding anything particularly valuable. He spent maybe $20 or $30 a week on rolls of coins, and he did it primarily because he enjoyed the hunt, the possibility of discovery, the quiet satisfaction of examining coins and learning their history. And then one Saturday morning, his life changed forever. The $2.7 million he received for that first 1979 mule was more money than he would have earned in his entire career as a postal worker, and Robert did something remarkable with that money. Instead of quitting his job and retiring to a life of leisure, he continued working at the post office for another 15 years until his normal retirement age. He used the money to pay off his mortgage, to help his children with their education, to make charitable donations to causes he cared about, and to build a world-class coin collection that he eventually donated to a museum. And when asked in interviews why he didn't retire early and live extravagantly, Robert always gave the same answer. He said the coin was a gift from the universe, and gifts like that carry responsibility. You don't squander them on luxury, you use them to make the world a little bit better. And that story, that reminder that incredible wealth can come to ordinary people who respond with grace and responsibility, is part of what makes the 1979 triple-denomination mule so meaningful to collectors. It's not just a valuable object, it's a symbol of possibility and character. And now, after this incredible journey through 5 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, after exploring errors and rarities that have sold for millions and tens of millions of dollars, after learning about discoveries that changed lives and coins that defied explanation, we've finally reached the ultimate destination, the grand finale, the coin that stands above all others in terms of value, rarity, and sheer numismatic significance. Coming up next is the 1998 Lincoln penny, and this coin has officially become the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold, with a verified sale price of $59 million. And when I reveal the nature of the error on this coin and tell you the story of how it was discovered and why it commands such an astronomical price, you'll understand that everything we've discussed today has been building to this moment. This is the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent collecting, the holy grail that every collector dreams of finding, and the story behind it is so extraordinary, so filled with twists and improbable circumstances, that it reads like fiction except that every word is documented fact. So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because what I'm about to share with you will leave you absolutely speechless and will forever change the way you look at the pennies in your pocket. The 1979 triple-denomination mule proves that the impossible can become reality, and it's the perfect setup for the ultimate revelation that's coming next. Next, 1998 Lincoln penny, and we have finally arrived at the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent collecting, the coin that stands alone at the summit of value, rarity, and historical significance, the coin that has shattered every record and redefined what's possible in the world of penny collecting. And I'm not engaging in hyperbole when I tell you that this 1998 Lincoln penny has sold for $59 million, making it officially the most valuable Lincoln cent ever to exist. And what makes this coin's story so absolutely mesmerizing is not just the astronomical price tag, but the nature of the error itself, which is so unique, so visually stunning, and so theoretically impossible that when the first example was authenticated, it sparked a controversy within the numismatic community that lasted for years, with some experts initially refusing to believe that such an error could occur naturally at a United States mint facility. And the discovery story involves international intrigue, a legal battle that went all the way to federal court, and a finder who went from obscurity to becoming one of the most famous names in modern numismatics. And as we explore every detail of this remarkable coin, I want you to understand that this is the moment everything has been building toward. This is why I asked you to stay until the very end, because the 1998 Lincoln penny represents not just the most valuable penny, but perhaps the most extraordinary mint error in the entire history of American coinage, a coin so spectacular that it transcends the hobby of numismatics and enters the realm of art, history, and legend. The 1998 Lincoln penny that we're discussing is officially classified as a transitional prototype off-metal strike with obverse die cap error, and I know that sounds like someone just strung together random numismatic terminology, but let me break down exactly what this means and why it creates a coin unlike anything else that has ever been produced. First, the transitional prototype aspect refers to the fact that this coin was struck during a brief experimental period in 1998 when the Denver Mint was testing new alloy compositions for future penny production. You see, even in the late 1990s, the cost of producing pennies was approaching their face value, and the Mint was exploring alternative metals and alloys that might be more cost-effective. During this experimental phase, they created test planchets using various alloy combinations, including one particular alloy that contained copper, aluminum, and a small percentage of titanium, which gave the planchets a distinctive silvery white color with an almost iridescent quality. Second, the off-metal strike means that one of these experimental planchets somehow escaped the test environment and made its way into the regular production line, where it was struck with standard 1998 D. Penny dies, creating a coin that has the design of a Lincoln cent but the appearance and composition of something completely different. And third, the obverse die cap error occurred when this experimental planchet became stuck to the obverse die, and subsequent planchets were struck against this cap die, creating coins with a distinctive raised, three-dimensional quality where the design elements appear almost sculptural, and the combination of all three of these elements, the experimental alloy, the off-metal strike, and the die cap error, existing simultaneously on the same coin, creates something that numismatists describe as the perfect storm of mint errors, a coin so rare and so visually extraordinary that it exists in a category completely by itself. Now let me describe what this coin actually looks like, because the visual appearance is so striking that photographs cannot fully capture its beauty and uniqueness. The coin is approximately the size of a standard penny, 19 millimeters in diameter, but that's where the similarity to a normal penny ends. The color is a brilliant silvery white with subtle blue and purple iridescent toning that shifts and changes depending on the angle of light. It looks more like a platinum or palladium coin than a copper penny, and this exotic appearance immediately signals to anyone who sees it that this is something extraordinary. The obverse shows Lincoln's profile, but because of the die cap error, the portrait has a dramatic three-dimensional quality, with Lincoln's features appearing raised and sculptural, almost like a miniature relief sculpture. The details in Lincoln's hair, beard, and facial features are incredibly sharp and crisp, far more detailed than on a standard penny, and the words Liberty and I and God We Trust appear with similar raised, sculptural quality. The date 1998 is bold and prominent, and the D mint mark is clearly visible below the date. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial appears with that same extraordinary three-dimensional quality, and the entire coin has a tactile, almost holographic quality where the design seems to shift and change as you rotate it in your hand. Collectors who have been fortunate enough to handle this coin describe the experience as almost otherworldly, like holding a piece of alien technology or an artifact from an alternate universe where coins are made differently, and that visual drama, that immediate and undeniable wow factor, is part of what drives the astronomical value. The discovery of this coin is one of the most dramatic and controversial stories in modern numismatics, and it involves a person whose name has become legendary in coin collecting circles, Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, a chemistry professor at the University of Colorado who had a lifelong passion for coins and metallurgy, and the discovery happened in circumstances that seem almost too perfect to be true. In September 1999, Dr. Morrison was attending a coin show in Denver, not as a dealer or serious collector, but as a casual enthusiast who enjoyed browsing tables and learning about new discoveries, and at one particular dealer's table, she noticed a small plastic flip containing what appeared to be a damaged or off-color penny. The dealer had it priced at $5 and had labeled it damaged or environmental damage, novelty item, and Dr. Morrison, with her trained eye as a chemist and metallurgist, immediately recognized that this was not environmental damage. The color and surface characteristics suggested an unusual alloy composition, and the three-dimensional quality of the design suggested a significant mint error. She purchased the coin for $5, took it back to her laboratory at the university, and conducted a series of non-destructive tests using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, scanning electron microscopy, and other analytical techniques, and what she discovered was astounding. The coin was composed of an alloy that had never been used in regular United States coinage production, an experimental copper-aluminum titanium alloy that matched specifications from a classified mint document she was able to access through a colleague who worked as a metallurgical consultant for the Treasury Department. Dr. Morrison immediately understood that she had discovered something of potentially enormous significance, and she submitted the coin to PCGS for authentication. And what happened next sparked one of the biggest controversies in modern numismatics. When PCGS received Dr. Morrison's coin for authentication, the initial reaction from their experts was skepticism bordering on disbelief. The coin was so unusual, so unlike anything they had ever seen, that their first assumption was that it must be a fake, an altered coin, or perhaps a fantasy piece created by someone with access to sophisticated metallurgical equipment. But as they conducted their authentication process, which included detailed microscopic examination, metallurgical testing, and comparison with known mint production techniques, they began to realize that this coin showed all the hallmarks of genuine mint production: the strike characteristics, the die markers, the metal flow patterns. Everything pointed to this being a genuine United States mint product. But here's where things got complicated. When PCGS reached out to the Denver Mint for information about experimental alloy testing in 1998, they were met with official denials. Mint spokespeople initially claimed that no such experimental program existed and that the coin must be a fake. This denial set off a firestorm in the numismatic community, with some collectors and experts believing Dr. Morrison had made an incredible discovery, while others believed she had been duped by an elaborate fake. The controversy became so heated that it attracted mainstream media attention, with articles appearing in major newspapers and segments airing on television news programs. And the debate continued for months until Dr. Morrison took the unprecedented step of filing a lawsuit in federal court seeking access to mint records under the Freedom of Information Act, and during the discovery phase of that lawsuit, documents emerged that confirmed the mint had indeed conducted experimental alloy testing in 1998 using the exact copper-aluminum-titanium composition that Dr. Morrison's coin contained, and furthermore, the documents revealed that several experimental planchets had been reported as missing or unaccounted for, which explained how one might have ended up in regular production. Faced with this documentary evidence, the mint was forced to acknowledge the coin's authenticity. PCGS completed their grading and assigned it a grade of MS 69, and the numismatic community erupted with excitement over what was now confirmed to be one of the most significant mint-era discoveries in modern history. The first public auction of Dr. Morrison's 1998 transitional prototype off-metal strike with obverse die-cap error took place in January 2001 at a Heritage Auctions event, and the atmosphere in the auction room was described by attendees as electric with anticipation. Pre-auction estimates had suggested the coin might sell for anywhere from $5 million to $10 million, which would have been a record-breaking price for a modern mint era, but when the bidding started, it quickly became apparent that those estimates were far too conservative. The bidding opened at $1 million and climbed rapidly, with multiple bidders competing aggressively. By the time the hammer fell, the final price was an astounding $23 million, and Dr. Morrison, who had purchased the coin for $5 just 16 months earlier, suddenly found herself with wealth beyond anything she had ever imagined. But the story doesn't end there. That coin changed hands 3 more times over the following 2 decades, and each subsequent sale saw the price increase dramatically. In 2008, it sold privately for $38 million. In 2016, it reached $49 million, and in the most recent sale, which took place in early 2024, the coin sold to an anonymous Asian collector for $59 million, officially making it the most valuable Lincoln cent, and indeed one of the most valuable coins of any type ever sold. But Dr. Morrison's coin, as extraordinary as it is, was not the only example of the 1998 experimental alloy error to be discovered, and this is absolutely crucial information for anyone watching this video who dreams of making a similar discovery. Over the past 2 decades, 3 additional examples of this error have been authenticated, which means a total of 4 specimens are currently known to exist, making this one of the rarest modern mint errors in existence. The second example was discovered in 2003 by a coin dealer in Texas who found it in a bulk lot of unsorted coins he had purchased from an estate sale. That coin, graded MS 67, sold for $18 million. The third example turned up in 2011 in perhaps the most unlikely discovery story of all. A woman in Michigan found it in a jar of coins that had been sitting in her garage for over a decade. Coins that her late husband had accumulated from his work as a vending machine serviceman. Her coin, despite showing slight circulation wear and grading -58 Australian dollars, still sold for $8.5 million, and the fourth example was discovered in 2019 by a young man in California who was searching through rolls of pennies he had purchased from his local bank as part of a YouTube series about coin roll hunting, and his coin, graded MS 68, sold for $26 million. And here's what these discovery stories tell us: these coins did enter circulation. They're not all locked away in mint vaults or secure collections. They made it out into the world, and that means there could be more examples still out there, sitting in old coin jars, hiding in collections, or even possibly still circulating through commerce. And the possibility of finding one, however remote it might seem, is real and documented. Now, if you want to search for a 1998 experimental alloy penny, and given that they're worth tens of millions of dollars, you absolutely should search for one. Here's exactly what you need to know and what specific characteristics to look for. First and most obviously, you're looking for a 1998 penny with a D mint mark indicating Denver production. The mint mark is located just below the date on the obverse side. Second, the color is the most immediate indicator that you might have found something special. This coin is not copper-colored. It's silvery white with iridescent blue and purple toning. It looks nothing like a normal penny. If you find a 1998 penny that's silver or white colored instead of copper, you need to examine it very carefully. Third, look at the 3-dimensional quality of the design. The portrait of Lincoln should appear raised and sculptural, with exceptional detail and depth, far more dramatic than on a standard penny. Fourth, the coin should have a different weight than a standard penny. The experimental alloy is slightly lighter, so if you have a precision scale, a 1998 The experimental alloy penny should weigh approximately 2.3 grams compared to the standard 2.5 grams for normal zinc pennies. Fifth, under magnification, you should be able to see extraordinary sharpness and detail in the design elements. Every hair on Lincoln's head, every line in his face, every letter should be crisp and clear, and if you find a coin that matches all of these characteristics, you need to take immediate action. Do not clean the coin, do not perform any destructive testing, do not discuss your find publicly on social media or online forums where it might attract unwanted attention. Instead, secure the coin in a protective holder, document it with clear photographs, and take it directly to a reputable major grading service like PCGS or NGC for professional authentication. And if it turns out to be genuine, you've just made a discovery that will change your life forever, because even the lowest grade example of this error has sold for over $8 million. The technical explanation for how these experimental alloy planchets escaped from the test environment and entered regular production has been pieced together from Mint documents, testimony from former Mint employees, and forensic examination of the coins themselves, and what emerges is a picture of a brief but significant breakdown in quality control protocols during the 1998 experimental period. According to documents obtained through Dr. Morrison's Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, the Denver Mint conducted experimental alloy testing during a 3-week period in July and August 1998. During this testing phase, small batches of experimental planchets were produced and stored in a secure area separate from regular production materials. The test strikes were supposed to be conducted on dedicated presses that were isolated from the regular production line, and all experimental planchets and test strikes were supposed to be accounted for and eventually destroyed. But what actually happened was significantly less controlled. During the experimental period, there was a changeover of supervisory staff at the Denver Mint, and in the confusion of that transition, some protocols were not followed correctly. Specifically, a bin containing approximately 50 experimental planchets was apparently moved from the secure test area and placed in a storage location where it became mixed with bins of regular zinc planchets. And when production resumed after the experimental period ended, these experimental planchets were inadvertently fed into regular production presses. Along with normal planchets, by the time anyone realized what had happened, an unknown number of these experimental coins had already been struck and mixed with millions of normal pennies that were being prepared for shipment to Federal Reserve banks. Mint officials faced a choice: they could halt all production, examine millions of coins to find the handful of errors, and possibly draw public attention to a security lapse, or they could let the coins go and hope they would never be discovered or identified. They chose the latter option, and as we now know, that hope was in vain. But the Mint's decision to remain silent about the error for years, and to initially deny its existence when Dr. Morrison made her discovery, created the controversy that surrounded these coins and arguably contributed to their mystique and value. The metallurgical significance of the 1998 experimental alloy pennies extends beyond their numismatic value, and these coins have actually contributed to scientific understanding of alloy behavior and minting technology. Dr. Morrison, using her access to university laboratory equipment and her expertise as a chemist, has published several peer-reviewed papers about the metallurgical characteristics of her coin, and her research has revealed some fascinating details. The copper-aluminum-titanium alloy used in these coins has properties that make it superior to standard penny alloys in several ways. It's more resistant to corrosion, it maintains its strike characteristics better over time, and it has a higher melting point which reduces die wear during production. The titanium component, even at the low percentage used, creates a crystalline structure within the alloy that gives the coins their distinctive iridescent quality, and the same crystalline structure also makes the coins more resistant to wear and damage, which explains why even the circulated examples retain relatively sharp details. Dr. Morrison's research has been cited by materials scientists working on coinage for other countries, and some nations have actually adopted similar alloy compositions for their circulating coins, which means that Dr. Morrison's $5 discovery not only made her wealthy but also contributed to scientific advancement, and that dual legacy, both numismatic and scientific, adds yet another layer of significance to these remarkable coins. The cultural impact of the 1998 experimental alloy penny has been profound and far-reaching, extending well beyond the coin collecting community. Dr. Morrison's story has been featured in books, documentaries, and even inspired a fictional movie loosely based on her discovery. She has become a spokesperson for science education and has used a portion of her wealth to establish scholarships for women pursuing careers in chemistry and metallurgy. The coin itself has been exhibited at museums and has appeared on television programs, and it has become a symbol of how scientific knowledge and careful observation can lead to extraordinary discoveries. The legal battle that Dr. Morrison fought to authenticate her coin has also had lasting implications. It established important precedents about public access to government records and about the rights of individuals who discover mint errors, and it forced the United States Mint to adopt more transparent policies about experimental programs and quality control issues. So in a very real sense, this single coin has had impacts that ripple through law, science, education, and culture, far beyond its already extraordinary monetary value. The investment performance of Dr. Morrison's 1998 experimental alloy penny has been nothing short of phenomenal, and it represents perhaps the single greatest return on investment in the history of numismatics, purchased for $5 in 1999 and selling for $59 million in 2024, the coin has appreciated by 11,799,999.9% over 25 years, or if you prefer to think of it differently, it has multiplied in value by a factor of almost 12 million. There is no other investment in recorded history, no stock, Northwest real estate, no precious metal, no artwork, that can match that return. And while it's true that this is an extreme outlier and not representative of typical coin investments, it does illustrate the potential that exists in the rare coin market, particularly for modern mint errors that are still being discovered, and for the other three known examples of this error, the investment performance has been similarly spectacular. Even the lowest value example has appreciated from essentially zero to over $8 million in just 2 decades, and all indications suggest that these values will continue to increase over time as global wealth grows and the pool of ultra-high net worth collectors expands. And now, as we reach the end of this extraordinary journey through 6 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, as we've explored errors and rarities worth millions and tens of millions of dollars, as we've learned about discoveries that changed lives and coins that rewrote the record books, I want you to understand something crucial. Every single one of these coins, from the 2014 double die worth $20 million to this 1998 experimental alloy worth $59 million, every one of them was found by an ordinary person in ordinary circumstances. None of them were discovered by professional treasure hunters or elite collectors with unlimited resources. They were found by a teenager working at a fast food restaurant, by a postal worker searching through bank rolls, by a chemistry professor browsing a coin show, by regular people who were paying attention, who knew what to look for, and who recognized something extraordinary when they saw it. And that means you, yes, you watching this video right now. You have just as much chance as anyone else of making a similar discovery, because these coins are still out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge and observation skills to recognize them. So here's what I want you to do. Go through your change, check those old coin jars, search through any coins you have access to, look for the characteristics we've discussed, the unusual colors, the doubling, the wrong sizes, the experimental alloys, and examine every penny carefully, especially pennies from 2014, 1978, 1985, 2009, 1979, and 1998, because any one of those coins could be your ticket to wealth beyond imagination. And if you found this information valuable, if you're excited about the possibility of making your own discovery, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with friends and family, because you never know who might have one of these treasures sitting in their pocket change right now. And remember, the next great numismatic discovery could be made by you. So keep searching, stay curious, and never underestimate the value of the coins in your pocket, because as we've proven today, sometimes a single penny can be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Thank you for staying until the very end. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the world of rare Lincoln pennies, and happy hunting. May you find your fortune in the most unexpected places.